Today's date is May 10, 2026. We're having an Israeli-Palestinian Confederation simulation. We are proposing a federal government for the people of Palestine and Israel together, based on a constitution, separation between government and religion, based on equality for the people of Palestine and Israel together, that includes the area of Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel. If you go to our website, ipconfederation.org, you can read the Constitution, you can read who we are and what do we support in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Go to the Constitution, you'll see that we are supporting a Constitution that has separation between government and religion, 300 parliament members in the legislative branch, president and vice president. And we're actually working on these 300 districts right now, implementing 300 districts in the area of Israel and Palestine. So the legislative branch will be 300 parliament members, and the executive branch will be president and vice president. Whoever will get the most votes will be president. Whoever gets the second number of votes of the other nationality will be vice president. I'll be happy to speak about our progress regarding the creation of the election that we expect to take place in about a year and 4 months from now, after we finish the platform and after we have a year of registration. You could reach me at josephavassar@gmail.com. We have two guests today. The first is, they're going to be together acting as commentators on what we are proposing, and also Sulaiman will be acting as the president of Palestine, and Rafi will be acting as the prime minister of Israel. Sulaiman Khatib is co-founder of Combatants for Peace, nominated for the 2017 and 2018 Nobel Peace Prize on its behalf. He is a board member of Elham, the day after, and co-founder of Ripples Collective, a network of Palestinian and Israeli nonviolent activists. An internationally recognized speaker, he is known for advancing peace, social justice, and equality. Sulaiman Khatib has led and co-founded several initiatives promoting dialogue and civic engagement, including Al-Quds Association for Democracy and Dialogue in 2006, the People's Peace Fund in 2008, and youth programs bringing Israelis and Palestinians together through sports. At the age of 14, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison, serving over 10 years, during which he educated himself and developed his commitment to nonviolence. Since then, he has been a leading advocate for peaceful resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and a prominent voice for nonviolent resistance. Sulaiman has participated in joint Israeli-Palestinian expedition to Antarctica in 2004, symbolizing cooperation, and appeared in the award-winning film Disturbing the Peace in 2006. Sulaiman is also known as the co-author of In This Place Together, a Palestinian journey to collective liberation, reflecting on his path towards joint nonviolence. Rafi Gassel is also our guest today, and he will be speaking with Sulaiman on all the issues, and he will be acting as a commentator on what is being presented, as well as taking the role of the Israeli Prime Minister. Rafi Gassel is an Israeli-American biotechnology professional and peace activist based in Jerusalem. Originally from the United States, he immigrated to Israel after studying computer science and biology. He currently manages a biotechnology business specializing in genetic sequencing and molecular diagnostics. In addition to his work in the life of science sector, Rafi is actively involved in initiatives promoting reconciliation between Israelis and Palestinians. He advocates political framework based on cooperation, mutual recognition of indigenous rights, and federal or confederal models that would enable both people to share the land while maintaining national self-determination. Rafi has written opinion pieces on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for publications such as the Times of Israel, where he explores ideas relating to coexistence, federalism, and long-term political arrangements between Israelis and Palestinians. He lives in Jerusalem with his wife and 3 children and is involved in several dialogue and peace-building initiatives that aim to promote practical solutions for a shared future in Israel-Palestine. Our next guest on May 24 will be Ilan Bass, who is a mediator and peace builder from London. He is now in Japan, teaching in Japan. Our guest on June 14 this year will be Avi Shilon, who is an Israeli historian, author, and political analyst known for his work on modern Israeli history, leadership, and ideological movements. With him, we will have Harley Schlanger, an American political analyst, speaker, and writer known as a spokesperson for the Lyndon LaRouche movement. We are demonstrating how a federal government could thread the needle. What does it mean, thread the needle? It means that a federal government that will be elected by the people of Israel and Palestine will be able to have its own ability to pass legislation that both sides, both the Israeli and the Palestinian government and their legislative branch, will not be able to veto. That means threading the needle. It means that both societies will benefit from the federal government, and therefore the Israeli and the Palestinian governments will not be able to veto it or object to it. Please use the chat feature for questions, and Nasir, who is the administrator of the question, will translate your comments into questions, or you can ask questions. We encourage as many questions as possible by the audience and by the guests. This is a 2-minute video that explains what the federal government we are proposing is about.
The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians has endured for generations. And instead of time healing the wounds, it's only caused the anger to fester and the violence to grow. But what if there was a way to alleviate the tension? Something that may not outright solve every problem, but at least create a forum that encourages a peaceful compromise. Welcome to the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, a common third government between the Israeli and Palestinian citizens, specifically designed to foster peace, tolerance, and economic prosperity between the two nations. Here's how it works. First off, both Israel and Palestine will keep their respective governments. Israel's Knesset and the Palestinian National Authority will remain unchanged. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, IPC, will be a third entity acting as a unifying agent between the two. The IPC will comprise 300 parliament members elected from 300 districts in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Above them will preside a president and vice president, one Israeli and one Palestinian. In order for the IPC to pass a law, it will require a 55% majority from its Israeli representatives, as well as a 55% majority from its Palestinian representatives, thereby preventing either side from monopolizing the legislature. Of course, the IPC won't undermine the political power of either the Israeli or the Palestinian government, At any time, Israel or Palestine may veto a law passed by the IPC. If neither side vetoes, the law is passed. And the two nations are another step closer to resolution. Please help us make this a reality. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. We might speak different languages, but we all mean the same thing.
So let's do a pre-simulation survey. All the audience, including Sulaiman and Rafi, please vote. Do you support a common confederation government for the people of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza that will coexist with the Israeli and the Palestinian government? Please vote. And we will compare the vote that we are taking now to the vote at the end of the simulation today. Please vote. If you support, vote yes. If you do not support, vote no. If you don't know what it is, vote no, because you cannot support something that you do not know what it is. Okay, 10 more seconds to vote. If you support, yes, say yes. If you do not support, vote no. If you don't know what it is, vote no.
Can you send me the voting sheet? I don't see it on my screen.
Okay. It's not a sheet. It's a survey. But are you voting?
Survey,
yes?
Sure. Well, call it what you may. A form that I put yes on it.
Okay.
I don't see it. Okay. Thanks,
All
Joseph.
Right. Thank you. All right. So we have published the vote. So we have 10 people voting yes and 2 people voting no. So 82%, actually, it's probably higher than 82% yes, and 18% no. All right. We will compare it to a survey at the end of the simulation. Confederation and federal systems exist worldwide to address specific conflicts, and their definitions vary and evolve. In the Israeli-Palestinian context, the IPC defines both federation and confederation in the same way as set out in the Constitution, a shared democratic government for the Israelis and Palestinians based on the principles outlined at the ipconfederation.org. That's the page I showed you the Constitution, the full Constitution to be in. So this is the heart of the simulation, and we will be asking you to make assumptions. So from now on, we are acting as if these assumptions are met, but I will ask you, the audience, and Sulaiman and Rafi to give their opinions on these assumptions. The first assumption is that we have been able to obtain funding to make the people of Palestine and Israel aware that an election is about to take place, that election is taking place, and they can vote for their parliament and for their president using their phone, using their computers. They can vote for a long period of time, which is 3 months. So you'll have to assume that we just finished the election, because we are now acting as if in a simulation, as if we are the government. So this is the first assumption you'll have to make. 15.5 million people, excluding children, were given the right to vote in the entire area of the West Bank, Gaza, and Israel. You'll have to assume that 5 million people have voted. The 3 million Palestinians have voted, and 2 million Israelis have voted. You'll have to assume that the president received 2 million votes. You'll have to assume that me, Joseph, was elected as president. I do not ever intend to run as president. I'm not qualified under the Constitution, but just in order to facilitate this simulation, please assume that I was elected president, and a Palestinian lady received 1.5 million votes. We will rotate in 2 years. You will also have to assume that 300 parliament members were elected in 300 districts in the whole area of Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel, and each district has approximately 52,000 people. So before I turn to Sulaiman and Rafi and ask them for their comments regarding these assumptions, does anyone have any questions or comments regarding these assumptions? Please raise your hand or just outright speak. Okay, hearing no questions, let's go to Sulaiman. Sulaiman, do you have any comments or questions regarding these assumptions?
Hello, everyone. Good to see you, everyone. And thanks for inviting me tonight with you, on this morning, I mean, in your time. No, I don't have a question. I actually like the idea to bring unity to our people in the land through a third government. So, in principle, I'm really fully in support, actually.
Yeah, you may support, but do you think it's realistic if the entire population that includes Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel are aware of these elections and are given a opportunity to vote? Do you think
Uh,
these assumptions are realistic that we will have 5 million people voting?
mm, mm. At the moment, the current political moment, I don't think these assumptions are true at this moment. Um, but working towards that goal and bring imagination and hope again to the people on the ground, that will increase these assumptions to be true. As we know, the current political systems is by default against this, and they will work against this. We're using all the media and the fear and everything. So I'm assuming I have faith and hope that most of our people in the land want to live in peace and freedom and want solutions. That's my belief. Like, I firmly believe that the majority want that. The timing is very important. That's why I think at this point of history, um, this need a lot of work to go there. And I like that, like this can bring some alternative to the classic solutions.
To break, I didn't hear the last word.
Yeah, like to bring alternative options to the classic solutions.
Do you think the people of Palestine and Israel will accept the concept of a government that's separate between government and religion?
There will be a division about this. Uh, I can't say exact numbers, but I believe a lot of people in both societies are connected to religion. So somehow we have to find a bridge both towards the culture that exists here and religion, and a bridge towards the future. And I think this idea can take the people from the stuckness now into a future. And that's why I think it's a revolutionary idea.
Okay, thank you.
Joseph,
Let's go to Rafi.
can I follow up on that question? Because my understanding is that the current government, the current leadership is already pretty much secular. So I don't understand this question that you asked them, because when you ask that, will Palestinians or say Israelis have an issue with separating government from religion? I mean, this has been the status quo for a long time and been pretty consistent. So the relationship between religion and government in Palestine and Palestinian societies is a lot different than, say, other Islamic countries. It's a lot more separated, I would say, already. So I don't know why you would think that this would be foreign to them.
So you object to the question.
Not to the question, but the question implies that Palestinians are wanting a religious government, and I don't think there's any sign of that in Palestinian society.
I asked the question about the entire area, but what you say is encouraging. But let's talk to Rafi. Rafi, what are your
Joseph.
thinking about these assumptions?
Hi, Joseph. Thanks for having me. Overall, I think the idea of a third government is a necessity to resolving the Israel-Palestine conflict. I'm not sure it would happen exactly the way as envisioned by these assumptions, but for the for the proof of concept, this is fine to make these so we can go on with the simulation. I would somewhat envision that it would be start out as more of a technocratic body, something like maybe the European Union, starting out with shared institutions between Israel and Palestine, a shared economic initiative, a shared security administration of some kind, and then over that it would start with a technocratic appointed group of experts that would manage this shared institution. And over time, then you would say, okay, this thing is working. Let's hold elections for it. And people have, been conditioned a little more to accept the idea of this principle. But yeah, I would add maybe to the assumption that the Israeli and Palestinian official governments have agreed to play along to this. And this has been gotten encouragement from the international community, the UN, the EU, the United States. Everyone sort of backed this idea. And then sure, yeah, then we should go. You could adjust how many parliament members, how exactly. I would maybe think of doing a two-house system, dividing the region up into some larger regions and having a Senate and a House. But there's a lot of ways to do this concept. But overall, I think it's a great proof of concept to experiment with what it would look like to have a shared parliament in Israel, Palestine. And regarding whether or not everyone would object to a religious government. Obviously, if there's going to be a third shared government, it would have to be a secular government. No one's going to agree to a shared government run by any kind of religion. The Israeli government is mostly secular. We have a national rabbinate, chief rabbi. We have a chief imam. We have all sorts of religious services in Israel and in Palestine. But overall it's pretty liberal. Both Palestine, relative for a Muslim state, is pretty liberal, especially Palestinians in the West Bank in particular. Are the younger generation is largely secular, and also so much on the Israeli side. And so I don't think that's a huge leap of faith, especially we're talking about what's going to run the shared institutions between Israel and Palestine. I don't think obviously a lot of people would say, oh, it should be run by Islamic law or it should be run by Jewish law. Maybe a small number of people, but they would get the idea that this needs to be a neutral institution. So that all this overall seems like a good idea, and I'm happy to carry on. And I think it's a good way to simulate what it would be like and how you could get Israelis and Palestinians if they were in a framework that encourages cooperation, if they come up with legislation or ideas that would be positive and productive. So good job.
Rafi, when I met with you earlier, I
Mhm.
think this week, uh,
Mhm.
you mentioned that you have a problem with this government being independent of the Israeli and the Palestinian government. Um, and I
Sure.
think you mentioned that you think that this government should be created by the Israeli and the Palestinian government. Are you still of that opinion?
I mean, I clarify. It would need to be its own thing. Obviously, it needs to be independently elected, but it would have to be connected in some way. Like they would have to agree that they would be cooperating because in a federal system, at least I understand. Let's say the United States or the European Union. I like that you say confederation and federation are basically the same because essentially it is. There's two. There's the state of Israel. There's the Palestinian Authority, and that's what we're working with. That's the institutions that exist here in reality. So I think they would have to cooperate. I mean, it could certainly be independent, like they can make their own laws and they don't have to be subservient, but then again, they'd have to make laws if there's an option for the Israeli government to veto certain things, so there'd have to be a shared framework that they all agree to. They have to you can't go to war against against the Israeli Palestinian Confederation if Israel like says we don't agree with this and we're going to fight this, then obviously it's not going to work. So that's why I would say it has to be. I mean, I liked in your discussion that, and one of the things I saw, it said that we recognize that we need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian government. So I agree with that. I
Yeah.
think that, right, the Israeli government's the legitimate government elected by 10 million Israeli citizens. It's a member state of the United Nations. 164 countries recognize it, and the Palestinian Authority is recognized as the state of Palestine by 160 countries. It's the largest employer in Palestine. It has 200,000 employees. I mean, it's the power to work with. You can't ignore either one. But certainly, this is something to bridge the gap, and I think that vision is great. You want to bridge between the people and bridge between our institutions. I mean, as flawed as they are, I'm not saying the Israeli government's perfect. No, it's far from it, and the Palestinian Authority is far from perfect. But they're all we got, so let's try to encourage them to get better, and this could be a way to help bridge that gap.
All right. So
Mhm.
this is the area we are speaking about, Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel. And Rafi has agreed to act as Israeli Prime Minister Sulaiman agreed to act as president of Palestine, in addition to their role as commentators to the simulation. At this time, I would like to ask you, the audience, to choose whether you are Israeli Israeli parliament member or Palestinian parliament members, keeping in mind that your district may be exclusively of your nationality or mixed district, and keep in mind the area that you are representing, and remain true to your commitment, remain intellectually honest, and remain, if you choose to be a Palestinian parliament member, stay Palestinian. If you choose to be Israeli, stay Israeli. I may ask you during the simulation, what area do you represent? So keep that in mind. Let's have you choose what is it that you represent, Israeli parliament member or Palestinian parliament member?
In my case, I'm the president of Israel. So am I also an Israeli parliament member or?
No, you are a separate government. You are Israel.
Okay.
You are not
So I just exit out.
yeah, you are a separate government.
Hmm.
You and Suleiman are a separate government. You are not
Hmm.
parliament member.
Okay.
The audience are acting as either Palestinian parliament member or Israeli parliament member. So you have 10 more seconds to make your choice, and you will be asked to vote during that process. Okay, publish the votes. We have 7 Palestinian and 4 Israeli parliament members in this, and you will be given the opportunity to vote for the in the election. I mean, for the laws that we are passing. Okay. First order of business is to ratify the Constitution. Libby, would you be so kind as to read the Constitution? This is a short version of the Constitution.
Palestinians and Israelis are entitled to equal rights under the law and guaranteed human rights and freedom. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation does not intend to supersede or supplant the Palestinian or Israeli governments, nor to abrogate or undermine any agreements between those governments. We recognize the need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments. Our purpose is to resolve conflicts and to expand the relationship between Palestinians and Israelis in a fair and equitable manner. We believe in equal rights under the law, guaranteed human rights, and freedom for all. We voluntarily give the legislatures and the governments of Israel and Palestine veto power over legislation we pass relating to the domain of control of those governments. We believe in the separation of power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. We believe in the creation of a permanent secular government for all the people residing in Israel and Palestine. We believe in having a separate judicial branch relating to IPC legislation with Israeli and Palestinian judges, with a system to avoid biased decisions based on nationality.
So before we ratify the Constitution, I would like to go over the veto power in the Constitution. The veto is given to the Israeli and the Palestinian governments on issues in which they are indispensable. If they are dispensable, they don't get a veto power. But if they are indispensable, they get a veto power. What does it mean, dispensable versus indispensable? If we pass legislation relating to the use of land or police force or removal of the wall, the governments of Israel and Palestine are indispensable and they get a veto power. But if we pass legislation regarding our budget or ratifying the Constitution or appointing our ministers or allocating our own funding, they are dispensable and they do not get a veto power. Why do we give them a veto power? Because a veto power provides a safety net to both sides for the population and the candidates for parliament. It increases the likelihood that Israelis and Palestinians will participate because they would not be concerned about nullifying their own governments. It decreases the Israeli and Palestinian government's opposition because they get a veto power. And it removes any claims that this government has subversive intentions to undermine the Israeli or the Palestinian government, and it gives legal protection to the candidates and compels the IPC to pass legislation that will be acceptable to both sides while creating a platform for negotiation with a deadline. So before we vote on the Constitution, does anyone have, and before I go to Sulaiman and Rafi, does anyone have any questions regarding the Constitution and the veto power? Okay. We are going to take a vote, and then we'll go to Sulaiman and Rafi. And because this is a Constitution, every parliament member has to ratify the Constitution. If you do not ratify the Constitution, you will be expelled from the parliament, and the person who received the next number of votes in your district will be elected as a parliament member. This is how it's done in every country which has a constitution. All the parliament members or the Congress or the Senate has to ratify, accept the Constitution. You have to accept the Constitution. Let's go to the Palestinian parliament members. Please ratify the Constitution. Palestinian parliament members. That means that you are accepting the ground rules of the game. Palestinian parliament members, please publish the vote. All the Palestinian parliament members have agreed to act based on the Constitution. We have accepted the ground rules of the game by the Palestinian parliament members. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. As Israeli parliament members, you have to accept the rules of the game, meaning you accept the Constitution. Israeli parliament members, please ratify the Constitution. Okay, publish the vote. One Israeli parliament member has not accepted the Constitution. That means he or she will be expelled from the parliament. The person who received the second number of votes from her or his district will be elected as parliament member, and you cannot vote on legislation. So this is a momentous occasion in the history of Israel-Palestine. It has never been done before that the people of Palestine and Israel ratified a constitution and legitimized a government. This has never been done before, and we are delighted that this has happened, and we are going to be using this momentous historical event for our own political capital to compel governments and organizations to contribute to our success, both politically and economically. Let's go now to Sulaiman. Now that you've seen that we passed the Constitution, Sulaiman, what are your comments? Or questions?
Yeah, I don't know, question or comment. I'm like thinking about the power dynamic here that exists in reality, which we don't really have a Palestinian state. We have a Palestinian Authority that control Area A, which is a little part of West Bank, where the Israeli government, in fact, in reality, in charge. So my question actually would be, to reach this imagination of a unity, which is beautiful. How do we go there and bridge the power dynamic between the two sides, to say? And the second issue is the land issue, because I saw in the how do we
Do you
solve?
have a specific question regarding the Constitution itself?
No, this is idle for me. I actually like it, like an idle word.
Okay. So your question is, how do we get there?
Mm.
Well,
And how
we
do
okay. Are you
the power dynamic in the reality? Yeah.
Maybe he's asking, how does the Constitution address the reality today of the power because of the balance between Israel and the Palestinian
Yeah,
Authority is so,
sure.
not equal. How does it address that?
well, the Constitution requires that there will be so many Palestinian parliament members and so many Israeli parliament members. And in order for them to pass legislation, we need to have 55% of the Palestinian parliament members and 55% of the Israeli parliament members agreeing on the same legislation. So let's assume that we just look at the whole map as one area. We don't distinguish between Gaza, Israel, the West Bank, Area A, Area B, and Area C. For us, it's all one area. This one area will elect 300 parliament members in 300 districts. In those districts, Palestinians could vote for an Israeli if the districts contain both Palestinians and Israelis. An Israeli could vote for Palestinian if the district contained both Palestinians and Israelis. And they can also vote for a Israeli president or Palestinian president, regardless of where they live or where they reside. This whole process will be created independently and separately from the Israeli and the Palestinian government, and it will require 55% of the Palestinian parliament members and 55% of the Israeli parliament members to agree on the same legislation. So, for example, if we have elected 140 Palestinian parliament members and 160 Israeli parliament members, we will need 55% of the 140 and 55% of the 160 regarding a specific legislation to agree between themselves. They don't have to agree on each and every legislation in the same ratio. Each legislation will be examined by the Palestinian and the Israeli parliament members on its merits. So I hope I answered your question.
But your answer is in the internal, and I think the question relates to is there anything in the Constitution that enables the Confederation to do anything if, say, for example, the Palestinian Authority or the Israeli government, for example, vetoes everything or doesn't cooperate? Is there any provision that says this is what will happen if so and so happens?
Well, if they veto, if they veto, that actually means that they recognize the government, that they veto it, and we can work together with them to make the necessary changes that would satisfy their concern. But right now, I am the president. I was elected president. I have the power to speak and expose the Israeli and the Palestinian governments if they veto unreasonable legislation. I have the power because of I was elected by the people, and I have 300 parliament members who were elected with me that support the same concept of a constitution. Let's go to Rafi.
Hi, Joseph. So, as the Prime Minister of Israel in this simulation here, I would say I agree with this in principle. I think we
Well,
would
you're
like to
not being
see.
asked. You're not being asked. You don't have a veto on this.
No, no, I'm not asked to veto. I'm just saying what my opinion on this. I think over time you'd want to empower the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation to have things that don't need to be vetoed. Once you've ratified their ability to manage a currency, for example, let's say we move the currency over to the federal government and now we have a federal bank, right? And they can set the interest rates. So we've empowered them to do that and both sides agree, and then from then on here on out they manage the interest rates of the federal currency, whatever we call it.
So both as Rafi and as the Prime Minister of Israel, you have a good things to say about this constitution.
Sure. And to address the concerns of Nasser and Suleiman, I would say I think in the process of creating this confederation where that was accepted by Rafi, the prime minister, or whatever, however it is, or the Israeli public, you would have to come up with steps that would start to resolve the underlying territorial conflict over Area C. And you could through this medium suggest solutions, perhaps. Like you could say Area A and Area B are all under Area A. And then we could say the remaining the parts of Area C that we agree would be transferred to Israel go to Israel. And now the remainder of Area C could be managed by the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation security forces while we step by step work out how to divide up the remaining part of the territory, create some kind of Jewish autonomy in Palestine, create a federal capital in Jerusalem, etc., and resolve do a piecewise resolution to the various, territorial issues and create an environment where people are safe so that they can have economic development and people can be happy and go on vacations and travel and live their lives. So the goal is to try to improve quality of life. So if that was the being proposed to Israelis and being convinced that this was a safe way to go about doing that, I don't really see that Israelis would object if this was obviously presented well. And hopefully Palestinians would also agree. Listen, this is a path forward. We can start resolving our differences over time and create an environment where Palestinians can, improve their lives, get jobs, work for a living, kids can go to school, and we can move forward.
All right. Okay. Let's go to the first constructive legislation, and that is making peace with Iran, Lebanon, Yemen, and Syria. So we are the people of Israel, Palestine. I am the president of the whole thing. I want to make peace with all of these countries. Libby, would you be so kind as to read this legislation?
We, the elected members of Parliament of the Confederation Government of Israel, Palestine, affirm our responsibility to serve the people of this land with integrity, accountability, and an unwavering commitment to peace. For more than a century, the peoples of Israel, Palestine, and the broader Middle East have endured recurring cycles of war, violence, and instability. From Iran to Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and beyond, generations have suffered from the failure of governments and political actors to secure lasting peace. We believe that a new path is necessary. Accordingly, we are taking the initiative to safeguard all people living in Israel, Palestine, and to advance a vision of regional stability that can extend across the Middle East. Peace for our peoples cannot remain an aspiration. It must become a deliberate and organized effort. To this end, we will establish official parliamentary delegations to engage directly with the authorities of Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran. The purpose of these delegations is to open channels of dialogue, promote mutual de-escalation, and work toward binding commitments to cease violence and threats among all parties. Our role will be to advocate firmly for an immediate cessation of hostilities and incitement, mutual recognition of the right of all peoples in the region to live in security and dignity. Structured negotiations aimed at achieving durable and verifiable peace. We will serve as an impartial facilitator and promoter of peace, guided by fairness, objectivity, and the protection of our people. Where governments or entities endanger regional stability or threaten civilian life, we will speak clearly and responsibly. Our commitment is to peace, security, and a future in which the peoples of this region can finally live without fear. And so this is pursuant to Article 2, Section 21 of the IPC Constitution. Neither the Israeli nor the Palestinian government holds veto authority over this act.
So we are the federal government. We are a legitimate government in Israel and Palestine, and we would like to establish an official parliamentary delegations to engage directly with the authorities of Israel, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran for the purpose of making peace. Before we vote on this legislation, does anyone have questions regarding this legislation? Before I go to Sulaiman and Rafi. Okay, let's go to Sulaiman. Sulaiman, do you have any questions regarding this legislation?
No, I don't have a question. I have a comment, maybe. Like my imagination, the moment, the occupation is ending and there is in the sight, end of the conflict and end of this narratives that exist now, and we try to build a new narrative for all the people in the land. I think this will open naturally the possibilities with the whole region. I can imagine this is a necessary step also, because the local politics here is definitely affected by the regional politics and the global politics. It's not a local conflict. So I think building bridges with the region would be necessarily, and globally would be necessarily, to make this idea a reality.
Sulaiman, the occupation has not ended. I am the president. I was just elected, and I want to implement this legislation right now, even if it's not ended. The war is going on. Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza and Israelis are being killed and injured severely. And as the president who was just elected, I would like to start working on peace immediately.
Yeah, I can't imagine a normalization with the region without ending the occupation, to be honest, because this has been tried before.
Well, it hasn't been tried. We never had a federal government before. We never
No,
had.
the going around the regional line without like having a roadmap to end the Israeli control of the Palestinian life. I have doubts. I just want to be truth and honest here. I can imagine if there.
But Sulaiman, you are not respecting me. I was just elected by 1.5 million people. And you're not respecting the 300 parliament members who were elected. You live in the past. We are a federal government. We are elected by the people of Palestine and Israel together. I am the president. I was elected by 1.5 million people. And you are acting as if we do not exist. 5 million people have voted in this election.
But well, I don't live in the past. I live in the now, and the situation in the ground is now. It's not in the past.
Okay, but we are simulating a different reality.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If it's all if assimilation. If
No, you have to accept the different reality in this simulation. You have to accept that in order to go on. You can't just say, I'm just going to pretend that this simulation doesn't exist. You have to really honestly believe that 5 million people have voted, that a president was elected by 1.5 million votes. I have now political power that has never been before. So I am requesting the proper respect.
All it's saying is that this is just a simulation. It's not reality, unfortunately. But this is a simulation.
Well, it is a reality within this simulation now. You have to accept that.
It's
Okay?
Okay, but the thing is Joseph, part of the Palestinian Authority is the recognized government of the Palestinian people, and the Palestinian Authority was created under the condition that the occupation, and it was a transitional government agency to go into Palestinian statehood. So the reality, and I think what Sulaiman is saying, is that the reality of the occupation is something that we have, whether or not there's this simulation or not, it's a part of it. And just
look, we're not exercising things and say, well, let's just pretend that the simulation doesn't exist and go back to this awful reality that we are simulating a new reality. We are simulating a new reality. That's the whole purpose of this.
But part of that new reality is recognizing that even, and again, I don't want to speak for Sulaiman, but when we had a transitionary period under the Oslo Accord, and when we had these efforts where Israel made peace with other Arab nations, it came at the expense of bypassing the real issue, which is the Palestinian issue. And I think that's the concern here.
Yeah, but the Israeli government is a failed government, okay? Do not tie us to that failed government. We are a different government. I am elected by the people of Gaza, and people in the West Bank, the people in Israel, and it's not being respectful for me after a year of campaign to tell me that I am part of the similar to the Israeli government. I'm not. This is a federal government with a constitution. We passed a constitution.
But how
All right,
come
let's
they
go.
did not they use their veto right over this?
I'm sorry?
How come they did not use their veto over it? How come?
Because the Israeli government and the Palestinian governments are dispensable. We can create our own delegation whether or not they agree to it. We don't have they cannot block us from having our own delegation going over to Iran, going over to Israel, going over to Lebanon, to Yemen. They are dispensable when it comes to this issue. That's why they don't get a veto power. We are the only legitimate government in Israel, Palestine.
But there are issues of land, and issues of land are.
This is not part of this legislation. We want to create peace. Peace is more important to us than anything else. We are the only legitimate government in Israel, Palestine, and please respect us in that sense. Sally.
Yes. So I voted no on one of the things that we had to vote on, simply because while I like this whole idea and I see that doing simulations in advance is preparation for the real thing. However, the idea of a federal government level rests on the fact that Israel and Palestine each have governments, or rephrase, that
No,
Israeli...
it doesn't. It doesn't. We are not, our constitution does not stand on the shoulders of the Israeli or the Palestinian government. As far as we are concerned, those governments can be gone. They are a problem. They're not a solution.
I understand that, but the fact of the federation rests. If you have a look at your own constitution, The factor of federation rests on the existence of separate, independent, sovereign Israeli and Palestinian states. So
Show me that. Here is the Constitution. It doesn't say that.
Under the, yes, it does somewhere. I just have to find it. We recognize the need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments. What else does that mean?
It doesn't mean that we stand on their shoulders. We recognize that they exist.
Precisely, but they need to exist. That's
no,
my
it
point.
doesn't say that they need to exist. We say
Well,
we recognize their existence.
And you need to work with them.
Yes, because, for example, for the piece of legislation that you're talking about at the moment, if the piece of legislation said that the federal government would work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments to strategize relationships with each of the other states that you mentioned, Iran, Syria, blah, 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 that would work for me because it would be the success.
Are you a parliament member?
Yeah, and you can hear I'm in the wrong parliament member.
Are you a Palestinian or Israeli parliament member?
I'm an Israeli parliament member.
And what area do you represent?
A mixed area wherever you, as the president of the Confederation, decide that I should be.
What area do you represent? You're representing one of the 300 districts. Which area?
Correct. And I don't
you represent
mind...
Tel Aviv, you represent Yaffo, you represent Haifa, you represent Beersheba, you represent Sderot.
Haifa, I think, is the most mixed area, so I think I would try to represent Haifa.
All right. So when you signed up to be a parliament member, you agreed to abandon your allegiance to the Israeli government and to the Israeli military and to accept the constitution of the federal government.
As a federal government. But
as a federal parliament member.
Yes.
Okay. So are you saying that you have a problem with this legislation because it does not require what? What's your problem?
I think that each of the countries, sovereign states that you have listed, Syria, Iran, Yemen, I forget if there was any other one, would be best negotiated with if the strategies and plans and program, kol hatochniot of the federal state, the federal government, had been worked out carefully together with Israelis and Palestinians in advance, instead of the sort of fairly blanket suggestion.
Yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying. This is technicality. I mean, obviously, yes, we are going to work with them in advance. But we are passing legislation to give us independence to negotiate, to go to Iran, to go to Lebanon, to go to Yemen, to go to Syria and find out what is really the problem, and to go to the Israeli government, we as acting as an independent entity.
Correct. But the problems that you've had raised by Sulaiman and Rafi and the other person who appeared were precisely because they haven't understood that we don't care about the occupation at this stage because there's an assumption that it's either over or about to be over.
No, there is no such assumption. We are passing legislation, and each legislation stands on its own. It's not assuming something else.
Okay, we shouldn't carry on with this because you've got other things to talk about.
Okay.
Let me say one more sentence. I would be totally, completely, and utterly in favor of a confederation after the establishment of a Palestinian state, with a Palestinian state having practice at being a state, and then the confederation would be wonderful.
But you voted. pledged allegiance to the Constitution.
I don't think so, but okay. Let me be quiet for the moment.
All right. All right. Let's have the Palestinian parliament members please vote on this legislation.
I didn't comment. The no comment from the Israeli
Yeah,
president.
we'll let you and Sulaiman. I'm sorry, we'll let you comment after this.
No problem.
Yeah, sorry about that, bro.
No problem.
Okay, publish the vote. 83% of the parliament members voted yes on this legislation. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members.
It's only one.
Israeli parliament members, please vote on this legislation. Publish the vote. 80% of we need 55% on each side. We got 80% on each side. Let's go to Rafi.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, in principle, I would support this legislation. I would comment though that as the state of Israel, I could certainly stop you from going to talk to Iran. It's an enemy state, and you're a citizen of Israel. I could arrest you at the border or in Iran or anywhere I want. And the leader of the most powerful army in the Middle East. But I would not do that.
Are you going to do that? Are you going to do that?
I would not do that to you, Joseph. I've known you too long.
No,
and,
but
it's not very friendly.
Are you going to do that? Aren't you going to actually expose yourself as someone afraid of peace if you arrest our delegation that goes to Iran, to Lebanon, Yemen, and Syria?
I suppose so, but I wouldn't do that. I would support you going to talk to them. I would agree with my fellow president of Palestine, Sulaiman, that it wouldn't be viable to really make significant peace with these countries and Israel. I mean, none of these countries are at war with Palestine. These countries are at war with Israel, unless we were making steps towards resolving the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But I would agree in the concept of doing a confederation together. I think we've made the case that we are trying to work things out, and I think that would be a good selling point for going to Iran or Lebanon or Yemen and Syria and saying, "Hey, Israel and Palestine are working things out. You don't need to be an axis of resistance. There's nothing to resist anymore, and we're trying to resolve our things peacefully." And then, obviously, in order for them to actually make peace with Israel, Israel would have to agree, and they'd have to be really serious about recognizing Israel and living in peace with Israel and accepting the right of Israel to exist. So Israel would need to exist, I would say, as part of this, and it would continue to exist, and it would hopefully be very supportive of the state of Palestine and its partnership and in the Confederation. So I would give you my vote of confidence, but as long as we were also being respected as the state of Israel, we could respect the support of the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation.
All right, let's go to our next. So, Sulaiman, as the president of Palestine, are you going to veto this legislation?
No, I'm not going to vote to this. Veto against it.
And Rafi, as the Prime Minister of Israel, are you going to veto this legislation?
No, I would not. I would support you. Good luck.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go to the next legislation, and that is Gaza. Libby, would you be so kind as to read this legislation?
Yeah, but I want to make one quick comment just to say that during the 1980s, a lot of work was done called citizen-to-citizen diplomacy, which I think we could kind of imagine that as this past legislation we just passed, that it's the people who make a difference by building these cross-cultural relationships. So anyway, I want to just remind people that a lot has been done at a citizen level, and I think this is a beautiful opportunity to imagine that again.
But Libby, the previous legislation is not citizens to citizen, it's government. We are the government. We are the government of Israel, Palestine. We are the federal government. We are not just regular citizens. We are parliament members. I am the president, and we want to go in that official capacity to all these countries.
I totally agree, but if people don't recognize this as a government yet, I think we need to just see that as the more people who get engaged in this, the better.
Why would you not acknowledge we got 5 million votes? I got 1.5 million votes and I have to beg for respect?
No, I agree with you. I think the plan is absolutely right on. But there
All
are
right.
some people who have a problem recognizing our reality.
All right, let's go to future
Okay, this
governance
is
of
the
Gaza.
future governance of Gaza. The Gaza region, with a population of 2.3 million people, elected 44 members to parliament, legislation. The destinies of the Israeli and Palestinian peoples are inseparably linked. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation provides a democratic vision for stability, prosperity, and peace. The IPC declares an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. We are demanding the Israeli and Palestinian governments to abide by the ceasefire agreements. In addition, prior to the construction campaign, the Israeli troops will withdraw from Gaza. The IPC shall launch a national reconstruction campaign to rebuild homes, roads, hospitals, civic institutions, and critical infrastructure, enabling the prompt return of displaced residents of Gaza to their communities. And the IPC proclaims the restoration of law, order, and civil society as a national priority, recognizing that peace is impossible without justice and social stability. The IPC shall retain authority over the Gaza Strip until a new, freely and fairly elected Palestinian government assumes power in Gaza in accordance with the democratic principles. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas shall agree to hold an elections within a year for the creation of a Palestinian government. All legislative, executive, and judicial decisions related to Gaza shall be enacted by the IPC government pursuant to the IPC Constitution, in cooperation with the government of the United States, all Arab states in the region, and the government of Israel and Palestine. And the IPC calls upon the international community, including the governments of Israel and Palestine, to provide a $50 billion grant to fund this urgent reconstruction and reconciliation effort. And this is pursuant to Article 2, Section 21 of the IPC Constitution. The Israeli and the Palestinian governments are granted veto power over this act.
All right, so on this legislation, because the Israeli and the Palestinian governments are indispensable, they are given a veto power. Does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation?
I have one question.
Yes.
And that is, why are we talking about the governance of Gaza as a separate issue when you've said that you're treating the entire area from the West Bank through to the ocean as one area?
What paragraph are you relating?
I'm talking about the notion of the future governance of Gaza as an entity within an area that you said there was no separation of entities. There were governments and bodies and authorities, but the area was to be treated as one.
Okay, I'm trying to find out exactly what part of the legislation you are concerned about.
Its title, Governance of Gaza. Why are we talking about governing Gaza if the whole area is to be treated as one with different authorities making legislation?
It says future governance of Gaza. We are, so are you saying why are we referring to Gaza?
Why are you limiting? Why are you limiting an area and calling it Gaza? You've got 300.
Because Gaza suffered tremendous devastation in the last 3 years, where
Yes, of course. Of course. So talk about the reconstruction of Gaza, not its governance. And talk about the destruction of tunnels.
And there is a issue of governance because the Israeli, there are many entities who want to be the government of Gaza, and we are saying we are elected by 2.3 million people. We have 44 parliament members in Gaza. So let's not forget that. We are the government of the entire area, including Gaza. And we want to be the exclusive government of the whole area, including Gaza. But we are willing to wait until for a year to give the Palestinians a chance to elect a democratic government. And once they are elected a democratic government, we will also be the government of Gaza, and the Palestinian government will also be the government of Gaza in accordance with the Constitution.
Yeah, I find this area problematic. And in your introduction, the business of a national reconstruction campaign, it would be good if you put an element in there to say that all the tunnels should be destroyed and disabled. And then I'll stop talking again.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I actually, I wanted to ask your opinion, is that would it be too much to include in this? Because the issue that I have is that we're saying reconstruction in future, but the issue may come is that I think we should acknowledge and address that certain things happen, like war crimes and stuff, that people have to be held accountable, because I would like this to be a precedence that in the future in our region, when things like this happen, that people will be held accountable. I feel that too many times this is being swept under the carpet, so that the future leaders and movements, and both, I would apply it both to Palestinians and Israelis as well, so that we don't have a future where things like this can happen again and people know that they could just get away with it. We're asking for the international community to pay for something, to pay for the destruction which was caused by Israel, the war crimes that were committed there. And if Palestinians were responsible for war crimes, they too should also be held accountable for that.
Paragraph 4 says the IPC proclaims the restoration of law, order, and civil society as a national priority, recognizing that peace is impossible without justice and social stability.
Yeah, he wants it to be explicit, and he has a point. We need to punish. The punishment should come.
We are not a Palestinian government. We are not an Israeli government. We are the government of the whole area, and we are so we're not a punishing government. We are a government for the future.
Yeah, and in the future, one of the items should be accountability for these crimes.
Well, that's what the law says. If there are crimes committed, and I agree that there were, we are recognizing law and order, and we have a law and order. We want to restore law and order because there hasn't been law and order in Gaza. All right, let's go to the we'll take a vote, and then we'll go to Sulaiman and to Rafi. Palestinian parliament members, please vote on this legislation. Okay, publish the vote. All the Palestinian parliament members that voted yes. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. We need 55% of the Israeli parliament members. Publish the vote. We got 71% of the Israeli parliament members. So this legislation has passed. let's go to Sulaiman and then to Rafi to give us your comments regarding this legislation. And also, as the president of Palestine, you have the right to veto this legislation. Sulaiman.
I
Fadal.
was the voice to Rafi, the Israeli president, for now.
Okay, let's go to Rafi.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, my concerns here with this legislation is regarding the status of Hamas still as present here. There's a currently legislation, a proposal by the United States government. There was a UN Security Council resolution to create something called the Board of Peace to resolve the situation. One of the demands was that Hamas disarm. I would be willing to accept Hamas agreeing to recognize Israel and work towards resolving things peacefully and some kind of amnesty program to move forward. Whatever would work to resolve it, but they would have to give up the idea that we're going to continue to go to war. This can't be a way that Hamas can rebuild an infrastructure to prepare another war with Israel. That's not in the interest of the people of Gaza or the people of Israel. So that would be my concern, that it would need to see
Any specific part of the legislation that you disapprove?
This like there's immediate unconditional ceasefire. There already is a ceasefire. Unconditional ceasefire. We launch a national reconstruction. I'm not sure which national reconstruction. I mean the binational, the two nations reconstruction campaign. How is that being funded? I would say, I guess that we're expecting the international community to fund that. It's not clear that that would be forthcoming. So you would have to maybe get money from Israel and Palestine.
Well, that's our problem.
Yeah.
But we
Fair
will ask
enough.
you to contribute.
Sure, and I'd be happy to contribute. And my concern would be the status of Hamas and their willingness to participate in a peaceful moving forward and recognizing Israel and Palestine going through this process of resolving our conflict. So if they were game to be part of moving forward and they would accept that
But
this was
Hamas is not mentioned in this legislation.
there is in the second page, I believe.
They actually are mentioned, and I would be surprised that Netanyahu would even give this even a second. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas shall agree to hold an election. Netanyahu, the real Netanyahu, would go crazy over this. He would say,
To hold
absolutely
elections in
not.
a year for the creation of a Palestinian government. And there is already the Palestinian Authority, right? So if Hamas is being accepted as a party within the Palestinian Authority, so maybe Fatah is the other main party, and they're going to hold an election, and if Hamas may win the election and take over the Palestinian Authority, so they would have to be willing to also agree to the principles of, let's say, the Oslo Accords or reconciliation with the State of Israel. And then I would be okay with that. And I'm pretty liberal. I'm probably as liberal as you'd ever get as a president of Israel, but that's about as far as I would go. They would have to Hamas would have to be
Are you
to
going to veto this legislation?
But Rafi, you
So
should
it
be.
would not. My veto would be conditional on specifying a response, or maybe you could optimize the resolution that, assuming that Hamas has agreed to coexist with Israel as part of their participation in
No,
this
we're
agreement.
not going to do that. That's not part of the interest of the people of Israel and Palestine. That's your interest, your government's interest. We believe that. Well, I am the president. I believe that the interest of my people in Gaza is supreme at this point. And if they want to hold an election, democratically elected government in Israel, Palestinian government, that's none of your business, really.
Sure, they were actually holding some elections. So what are my concerns here? You're going to rebuild. I guess that we're going to be a rebuilding, I think, with Hamas not agreeing to end the conflict. So that would be my concern. I would want to see, as the president of Israel, something about getting Hamas to agree to end the conflict permanently.
Hamas agreed many times.
Well, so you are recognizing Hamas.
I would be willing to recognize Hamas if they would recognize me and agree to a permanent resolution of
why do we
conflict.
have to get into this? You're recognizing them, they are recognizing you. That's not
I'm
our
playing the part of the
You can
president
work
of
with them
Israel.
independently. You can work with them independently, and tell them that you are recognizing them and you want them to recognize you. It's really not our business. Our business is the people of Gaza that are suffering in the last 3 years, and we want to rebuild in Gaza. Don't tie us into your separate issue with Hamas.
Okay, I mean, I'm stating the position of the UN Security
Let's
Council
go. Let's
resolution
go to the president
calling for, sure.
of Palestine. Mr. President of Palestine, are you going to veto this legislation?
Yeah, I will support this legislation. My understanding, Joseph, from this, either we accept it entirely or not, right? It doesn't, I don't feel there is a place here
Right.
for.
Yeah, I mean, we can work with you if you want to make changes, as long as the changes are also acceptable to our parliament member and to the Prime Minister of Israel.
Actually, you could actually veto this, Sulaiman, and it will be sent back, because if you veto it, that means it doesn't pass, and therefore it would force the parliament to revise it to make it more acceptable to you, and that's the reason why we have a veto.
Yeah.
Correct.
I saw our parliament is fully in support, so I'm following the parliament advice decision.
So I would say one more question. It says in number 5, the IPC will retain authority over, well, not retain, will gain authority. It doesn't currently have authority over the Gaza Strip, but if the IPC has security forces created of Israelis and Palestinians that agree to coexistence, and Hamas will hand over authority to them as part of this legislation, if that was specified, I would definitely accept it as the Prime Minister of Israel. So the IPC would have a Israeli-Palestinian joint security arrangement that would take over from Hamas and manage it temporarily while there's a new government. It's fine.
Okay.
I can accept that.
I think we understand the principle here. We don't have to beat a dead horse.
Sure.
Okay, let's go to post simulation survey. After participating in the simulation, do you support a federal government in Israel, Palestine? Please vote.
And I can also answer?
You can vote. Yeah, you and Sulaiman.
Okay, sure.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm still in favor.
You are released of your governmental duties at this time.
My presidential duties, that was very stressful. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, 10 more seconds to vote. Publish the vote. So now we have 92% voted yes before we had 82%. So it's a slight increase. Let me just make a closing remark. A common democratic confederation government can bring peace, as we can see. Online election is feasible. We are actually working on that right now. And I'll have news to give you on that issue. We had a meeting with the election company Friday, and all the issues, all the technical issues on how to conduct the election and how to create the 300 parliament member, the 300 districts have been resolved. So I'm very encouraged by that. This week, they will give us the blueprints of the whole thing. We need to make sure that everything they submit to us conform with what we have agreed upon. And then there is a question of pricing and contract, which I pretty much have an idea of what it will be. Hopefully, it would be lower than what they gave us before, but pretty much we know what it's going to be. I spoke with them. They said it will take 3 to 4 months to create the platform. And this is a very reputable company all over the world. And after that 3 or 4 months of creating the platform, we will have a year of registration. and after that, we will have the people in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza being able to register to run and register to vote. So these are my closing remarks. I'm going to open it up now to and stop sharing. And if you have questions or comments or whatever, I'll let Nasir handle the discussion now.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions or comments about the simulation or both the work of Rafi and Sulaiman, this is the time where we can raise our hands. You could also type your messages in the message box and I will relate them as well. Also, this is an opportunity for both Rafi, Sulaiman. Maybe you can tell us something about your activities and what you're doing. Has there been any developments? I know Rafi has been here a few times, and I know he was working with the Federation Forum. Was that what it was called, Rafi?
Yeah, we have a group called the Federal Forum where we
Yeah.
promote federal solutions to the Israel-Palestine conflict. We're working on setting up in Israel like a movement to promote these policies towards parliament members and to get to build up a support movement. We also created a sort of a young federalist group both in Israel and in Palestine as part of the Greater European Federalism Society, and they go to events in Europe, and they're also promoting a sort of federal vision based on sort of two states in a confederation. And then we also have something called the Democracy and Federalism Hub in Israel, where we're promoting federalism within the state of Israel, dividing Israel up into, regional autonomies, restructuring the Israeli government to be more representative of all the various factions to help create constitutional reforms and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I do. And I also try to do dialogue when I can with various people. I do a podcast on talking about geopolitics every now and then in Hebrew, and sometimes I do lectures about genetics and history of Israelis and Palestinians, and I try to do my best to be part of the solution.
Awesome. You actually did a 1 hour presentation on DNA, Palestinian and Israeli DNA. It was very interesting, by the way. I watched it a few years ago, actually.
Yeah, I got another one on Sulcha, or no, it's now called Head On.
Yeah.
I did another one like in the last year, and yeah, I'm doing a set in Hebrew. Maybe I'll do another one in English.
Yeah, very fascinating. Go ahead. Sulaiman, did you want to say something about your organization before we take a question from Shlomo?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I am a co-founder of a Palestinian-Israeli organization called Combatants for Peace. I'm also active in other groups, also in a joint space is what we call it. And actually, to connect with the idea of federation and in a micro experience, I think our experience in the last 20 years having a joint organization, recognizing the power dynamic and the situation and reality, but still the decision making, actually having two directors and so on. I think it's really could be a rich experience to bring into, federation ideas, how two nations can coexist in one land, and to transform the dark reality that exists right now. So I'm very active in the space actually, and more in the grassroots level. And maybe just to mention, because like the separation is really deep, and the system is based on separation. And part of what we do, for example, which many people here I see in the screen knows about this, for example, commemorating the memorial ceremony together. This is something like really sacred, I would say, of a humanization of each other and recognizing each other like being, and despite the power dynamic and not going through, the victimhood thing. So I just remember the director of the memorial ceremony, the Palestinian-Israeli memorial ceremony, has said 3 years ago that his wish would be that this ceremony will be the Palestinian-Israeli ceremony in future for like the formal one. So that actually gives me a taste and hope how this two different or more than two groups, different groups can work together. And actually, because we spoke about the past, I come from a family that practice Sulha Rafi. So I have a bit of knowledge around Sulha practically in our region, which is very important to bring in the table. I think it's something that talks to our people in the culture. It's very important here.
Awesome. Go ahead, Shlomo.
Well, first, I am curious about the genetic study. Could you kind of summarize it in a few sentences? Just what was it and what the results?
Oh, sure. I mean, I did a presentation on, there's been like 25 years worth of research going on in many universities in Israel and in the United States and in Europe. And overall, basically, Jews and Palestinians both have roots in this land. They have shared roots. They're all everyone's mixed. There's no such thing as pure, ethnically pure people, but we now have over 90, skeletons or maybe 100 from the greater Middle East going back 3,000 years. So you can see that most of the major Jewish populations have some connection to ancestry in this land, and also the Palestinians significantly as well. So it's not true the idea that Palestinians are a bunch of recent immigrants to the land. There's a lot of propaganda. I feel like a lot of the dialogue on both sides is sort of to delegitimize the other side as a way to sort of win your case that I'm fighting an anti-colonial struggle because I'm the real native and these guys are colonists, and both sides are imagining themselves in this movie where they're the hero and the victim of the other side's colonialism. And I think to sort of break that story and say, listen, they're two native peoples to the same land and they just need to learn to get along. And it's a better grasp of reality for both people, and that no one's actually going to leave. So mutual respect should probably be the way forward. I feel like that's a nice way to connect people to each other and to the history of the land.
Yeah, no question. Another question to both of you is now that you see the IPC and you know what it is about, there is so much in common. What do you think about uniting us in a way, combined to, at the end, we will need a lot of us to make a change, not just the 20 something four people here. So it will be great if all of the people who have the view that we have about equality and peace will get together. Just a thought.
Before you answer that,
Sulaiman,
before you
you
answer
want to
that,
do it first?
Rafi, before you answer that, let me add
Sure.
something to Shlomo's comment
Hmm.
because I've listened to both. I think Phil is with you, right? Phil Saunders and
Sure.
okay. So
Yes.
when looking at these two different, and we want to respect everyone. I don't want to say this, but what would you say would be like in bridging the gap? Like what are the key things that you see from IPC versus the federal forum that you would see like how do they overlap and how do they differ, I should say.
Yeah, I don't know. They're necessarily different. They were different models. Joseph had a particular model, and the Federal Forum was several different groups. There was a bunch of authors that all had their own Facebook group or wrote a book, or various activists in Israel and in Palestine that were, promoting various visions, and we decided to work together to promote this idea. I mean, I think the IPC platform is on the Federal Forum website. It's another concept. I like the work that Joseph does. I think it brings people together. It's very active, and it's very, we got a bunch of Israelis and Palestinians together to have a conversation. So that's, kudos. I think that's great. So yeah, we just need more of that. What could I think you could be? I don't need to compare these two organizations. I think what would I think build the bridge? I think to recognize the similarity in culture that both groups are very collectivist, that both Israelis and Jews in general are very somewhat Middle Eastern, and I feel like there's a perception amongst Palestinians that the Israelis are very Western, so that they're just concerned about their individual lives and they're making money and stuff like that. And it's actually a very Middle Eastern culture in terms of, the collective well-being of the Jews see themselves as one family. I think that if the Palestinians would, and Arabs in general, would recognize that the Jews are sort of Middle Eastern in that way, it would help bridge that gap. And finding that the way to bridge the gap is like you do in Arabic culture, you say Ahlan wa Sahlan, which Ahlan is like my family, right? We're part of the same Ahl, and then and everything's cool, like it's a Sahel. And so like to really be part of the one family, I think that message resonates to both people, and it's more about, I mean, you say like we're just going to sit around and eat hummus and everything will get better. I wouldn't, that's not the only thing, but that's a lot of it. Like if you actually build the connection between the people, you could then make it easier to resolve things on a large level. And I think a lot of the separation, these big red signs that say don't go to area A, be afraid. I think that also inhibits a lot of resolving. I think that, and Palestinians are also afraid of normalization. They're like, I'll normalize with the Israelis, and then my world will collapse, and I won't have Israel, and I'll lose everything to them. And I think that fear also inhibits resolving the conflict in many ways. I think if Palestinians just welcomed Israelis to come visit them in Palestine, and Israelis just hung out in Palestine and ate at the restaurants and stayed in their hotels and met a lot of Palestinians, and every Israeli had a bunch of Palestinian friends, it would be very easy to end the conflict. You'd be like, why don't we resolve the conflict? And everyone would be like, yeah, cool.
I have a question for Ramona.
Mhm.
Ramona, what was your reaction? What is your impression after you participated in this simulation? And you ask a specific question: why are the Israeli or the Palestinian government not given a veto power on legislation relating to making peace with Iran and Syria?
Yes, I think maybe it's, look, my parents are settlers. They live in Efrat. So when I ask them, they say we don't hate Palestinians. We think that all people deserve the right to live and dignity and everything. But when you talk with them about the political rights, this is a problem, and this is the first thing we need to solve, and not the last thing. I don't think the problem is between the people.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I kind of feel the same way, that we have a normalization of mindset. And that normalization is that many Israelis that I meet, they're okay with having Palestinian friends. They're okay with recognizing Palestinians as humans. But when it comes to the power dynamics, it's very difficult for them, because Israelis have been so long used to being the superior people, that the idea is like, you can cook my falafel, you can fry my falafel, you can, make my hummus, you can work in my company, you can do that. But when it comes to political equality and power dynamics, this is something still scary to many Israelis. And I think that, to respond to what Rafi was saying, is that this is the mindset that you're seeing, that it's become so normal that Palestinians are sort of expected to be sort of subservient in any type of arrangement, whether it be business or politics. And I wanted to get this into Sulaiman, because from a Palestinian perspective, the working with such organization, the reason why it's dangerous is that Palestinians have so much more to lose with normalization, because if they start to normalize, then the concept of their identity, their not just their identity, but their existence itself. With Jews, it's like, okay, we're Middle Eastern, that's an identity issue. But with Palestinians, it's actually about existence, because the settler movement has a mission, and his mission is to basically, eradicate the Palestinian existence. It's, so the odds here are much more against us. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, just one sentence. The problem of the Israelis is they want to be a majority. The whole idea of Zionism was that we were always the minority. We were kicked away, and we were, being mistreated because we were minorities. Now we want to be the majority, and they know that if we have equality and everything, that eventually there will be more Palestinians than Jews, which means that they will lose the majority, there will be minority. And for the Israelis to become minority is very difficult.
Wait a minute. Are you saying that the federal government will change the constellation of the population?
No, but if the solution is one state, which is really the only solution, or non-state, whatever you want, but because really this is the only solution on the table. The two-state solution is dead. It was never actually was born. So it's one state.
We're not proposing one state. We are saying the federal Israelis will continue to have their government. The Palestinians will have to continue.
Oh yeah.
But Joseph, that in a sense would change the dynamics, because in your confederation, you're having a parliament that's 50% Palestinian, 50% Israeli. You don't have that.
No. That's not
a
true.
repre-
That's not true. As many Palestinians are elected, as many Israelis are elected, it doesn't require 50% of each. That's absolutely not true.
I thought it is true. I'm
No,
confused.
no, 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 no. You do not. The Constitution does not require an even split in the parliament. It does not. Even if you have more on one side over another, it really wouldn't make any difference because you need 55% of the Palestinian and 55% of the Israeli, whatever their number is. So even if you have 160 Palestinian and 140 Israeli, you need 55% of the 140 and 55% of the 160. You don't need to have 150 on each side.
Okay.
Okay. Did Sulaiman, did you want to say because we were talking?
Yeah,
I said something.
somebody speaking. Okay, I
Concept of marriage is life.
Okay, who's speaking? I'm sorry.
Senator.
yeah.
When you
Does
that's
anybody?
supposed to
I don't see. Some. I don't.
Samir, we
Yeah, but
don't
I
see
don't see
you.
him.
We cannot hear you.
Oh, I see him. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sulaiman, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would speak from my experience in the ground. So one thing I think Rafi mentioned the Sulha thing. I think the key element for a solution is recognition. And that's actually, as far as I learned from our conflict resolution thousands of years in the land, in the region, actually as indigenous culture here, that first step is always recognition, recognizing and taking responsibility. I think this is really important for me to mention here.
Recognizing what? Recognition of
Recognizing,
what?
recognizing the truth, the reality, and the past is very important. I don't, I'm not speaking about the federation solution right now. I'm saying generally. Um, that would be very important usually in our.
But when you say recognition of what? What do people have to recognize?
Mm. Yeah, for me as Palestinian, I would need a recognition from Israelis to the Nakba, to everything happened to our people and to the land, building a Jewish state here and the expense of Palestinian. This is a historical fact. And taking responsibility from there will firstly open the hearts of the Palestinian and remove a lot of anger and frustration. That for me, this is the step from the Israeli side. From the Palestinian side, I agree with Rafi actually because I also studied a lot of history in jail time. I never been in a university, where I also believe our genetic and our history has a lot of shared and common value, and also recognizing that Jewish people are Middle Eastern rather than West European colonialist. This is a big conversation maybe for other time, but I think this is a key element for a reconciliation process. And I don't think we can move ahead without recognizing the trauma, also in the Israeli side. I'm not just saying in the Palestinian side. Um, not to stuck in the past, not to stuck in the trauma, but there is a collective trauma, a generational trauma that we carry in different ways. I think it's important to recognize that. And from there, it's easier to move ahead with practical solution. For now, at this moment, um, the real political situation on the ground, as I live in West Bank, my family live outside of Jerusalem. The settler violence is taking over the whole area. It's not a few settlers, it's not a few radical settlers here, there. Um, it's gone really. There's no more water resources in West Bank. Even Loja, near Jericho has been taken lately, Wadi killed everywhere. So I don't want to go on the list, obviously, of everything happening now. You can look online, even in Israeli media, and you will see that. So I feel we need to recognize the reality, and from there, solutions can be easily. I personally prefer bridges and uniting um, our people because I think there are a lot in common and there is enough resources. And I believe there is no freedom for my side of the story without the freedom of, I would say this, a freedom for the oppressed and the oppressor. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I don't think Israelis are free. I am ex-prisoner. I always feel free, by the way. I don't feel victim. And I'm responsible and I have a choice. With that said, our freedom is totally connected. I can't imagine a freedom and safety for one group in this land or anywhere else anyway. That's my experience, honestly, and that's my take.
So let me ask you, Sulaiman,
Yes.
are you more concerned about past recognition or the reality on the ground? Like for many Palestinians, are they more concerned about, getting rid of the checkpoints, dealing with settler violence, rather than having like Israelis acknowledge like Nakba and things in the past and things? What's the priority?
Um, so I think it's all connected. Nasir, how is you say your name? Nasir,
Yeah,
Nasir.
perfect. You said it perfect, Nasir.
All right. So in my experience, and I'm working a lot in Palestinian-Israeli spaces. I think it's all connected. I prefer to go to the roots of the issue.
Hmm.
Settler violence is symptom. It's not the issue. Yes,
Okay.
there is really existence problems now at checkpoints. Even for me today, I came from Bethlehem today. I have to drive like 4 hours. Typically, it's 1 hour and a half because the increase of the checkpoints. So still, for me, this is a symptom of the system, and we need a system change because the system right now work for one group. And still, I, as Palestinian, I feel we have much more power than we think.
Interesting.
I feel more grounded than more than most of my Israeli friends, I have to say. Anyways, I believe like that there are emotional parts of the story that's out of the table sometimes. I think it's important to bring it to the table. I'm part of one group. We do grieving and together, and um, my point, I think, is really to come as full truth, not to keep anything outside. That include, like the past and the current and where we're heading from now. And personally, I support any initiative that aim really uh, to come to solutions. And I don't think there is one way, there is one strategy. I personally support nonviolent struggle. And I believe that some people has to do dialogue, some people has to also disturb the system. Because I don't know how change can happen just to convince people. It's not happening. It's never happened in any other, if we think about any other situation. I prefer to have some people like, if I will speak to the activist groups and to the peace building groups, um, my wish that will be like partnerships and alliances among these different groups that can really have impact. And that's actually maybe I'm more interested in this because this way we can unite forces of people. Doesn't matter Palestinian, Israelis, internationals, that really on the same page, on the same consciousness. And that's what I think where we should unite.
Interesting.
I tend to agree with Suleiman. Uh, the real issue is the roots of the problem. Once we resolve the roots of the problem, we will resolve the subsequent problems, including the occupation and the apartheid. I do not see the Israeli government ever dealing with the roots of the problem. dealing with the roots of the problem for the Israeli government is recognition of the failure of Israel as a Jewish state.
Mhm.
For them, it is political suicide to deal with the roots of the problem.
I
I
disagree.
think, but
I would disagree, but I'll let you finish.
okay, well, you may
Uh,
disagree, but we have 78 years of proof of that. They ignored the roots of the problem. They ignored the Nakba. They ignored 750,000 Palestinians that have been expelled. So,
Yeah.
look at the facts. The facts are very clear. They are incapable of dealing with the roots of the problem because that would undermine the whole idea of a Jewish state.
Yeah. Rafi, what do you think?
I mean, I think that the framework of a federation really helps resolve the issue. So I consider myself a Zionist. I think that returning the Jewish people to our homeland is a historic justice. But I think that has to come in tandem with responsibility for the Palestinians. I mean, that's in the Balfour Declaration. We support the creation of a Jewish state on condition that everyone else who lives there has equal rights. And that's in the Declaration of Independence, right? We have responsibility. We accepted the principle of two states in an economic union, and we had responsibility for the equality of everyone in our state and in the Arab state. So I think we have to take responsibility as Israelis, as people who came back to our homeland, that there's a potential risk there that we're going to disturb the other people that live there, and we have to take responsibility for our other fellow natives and treat them with the same dignity that we expect to be treated. And all we were asking in return is that acknowledgement that we're also from here and we also have rights to be here and find a way to work together. I don't see that in theory, that's what we should have done, 100 years ago when we first got here. I don't know. It's hard. I can't go back. We don't have a time machine, so I can't go and resolve things what should have been then. But what we can do now going forward, if we believe in these principles, is agree to live together and cooperate.
But
And I think that should be the. So
let's
I
go
don't think Israel is a. What's the question?
let's go 100 years back.
Okay.
We come to Palestine and we
Okay.
establish something there. We will be we are the minority. Are you
Okay, but
okay?
we wanted to come back and enough to have at least part of the country where our majority. And that's what they made a partition. They drew a weird squiggly line and said, in this side, you're a majority, so that we could create a system where you had two governing structures and they're supposed to be in a cooperation. I don't think they didn't do a good enough job, and there was a, you know, 20 something years of conflict before 1948. From 1920 until 1948, there was a civil war building up between the Jewish and Arab population.
But
But
in
I can't,
under,
I can acknowledge that the failures of the early Zionist movement, but I can't go back in time and fix it. But we can start fixing things now, and I think that's the best we can do. So let's do
okay,
that.
okay. What do you think about one state rather than two?
I think I'm in favor of one federal state. I think you should make a union between Israel and Palestine, and over time it would develop into a federal state like the United States of America. It started as a confederation. Each state would have, a lot of protection for itself at the beginning, but over time the federal government would grow and develop and would have more and more authority. And ultimately, it's beginning you would have Israeli citizens, Palestinian citizens, and together we'd be citizen of the union. And over time, you would don't need your second passport. At some point, they would agree, okay, we'll do a referendum. We're just moving to one passport, and we'll come up with something that works. So there would still be a state of Israel within this framework that had a significant Jewish population or Jewish majority, and there would be an Arab majority state of Palestine and a mixed Jerusalem in the center. And you could have even sub-provinces. You could have Israeli Arab provinces within this framework, like Switzerland. You could make it nice, and I think it would be a very nice place to live as Israelis. You're also Israeli, I see. So that's the great future. I think find a way to make places where we feel like we're at home and share the whole place. And I think
But
that should be the vision going forward.
the problem with your brand of Zionism is that you're declaring you're still, here's the thing. Israel is presenting itself as the homeland of the Jewish people or the state of the Jewish people worldwide. And I think that this is
hmm
problematic in trying to set up a state where you want Palestinians and Israelis to be equal. You're having a country that says We're not the country of 50% of the people who live here. We're the country of the people who live around the world, the 14 million people who live around the world. And I think that you're saying that, okay, if Jews want to immigrate to Palestine legally, that's one thing, but this is what is implied by Zionism, that Zionism is that we are the homeland of the Jewish people worldwide. And I think that that's problematic.
Well, I think we'd have to make some
I agree.
compromises on immigration. Obviously, if we're going to share a country, we have one state that's a Jewish majority state and one state that's an Arab majority state, and hopefully we'd have open borders. I could live in Ramallah, you could live in Tel Aviv, and we'd create a structure that would work to make that viable and enable Jews who wanted to move to make Aliyah at a reasonable number that's practical for the absorption of our country and Palestinians
Okay.
from abroad who wanted to return. And we'd both have to compromise on what we would do, but I think it's worth doing because we have a lot of people. We have 15 million people who live here today. And
Okay.
the first step would to get us to get along, the people who are here now. And then we want to bring back other people and integrate them in our society and get them to be productive members in this cooperative framework we're trying to build and integrate them and make them feel at home. So we could do that in some reasonable way we would all agree to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rafi, you mentioned something earlier that your federation, you have a youth sort of branch for the youth. And
Sure.
the reason why I'm asking is that there was a demonstration that I was watching in Tel Aviv the other day, and there was a young person who was going around filming himself saying that there's nobody here under the age of 50. And I'm noticing from some of the people participating here that we're all pretty much like dinosaurs. I don't know, maybe the Ziad guy looks kind of young, but the rest of us here are all dinosaurs. Hi, Ziad. You're the youngest person here, I think. Or at least you
Yeah.
look young.
كيف حالك
And
زياد؟ وش
and yeah, the
I
rest of
just
us
turned
are
30 yesterday.
like, up there. And what I'm saying is that what I'm seeing by statistics and influencers and things like that, I'm really terrified for the future, to be honest with you, especially from the Israeli side. The younger generation that's coming is terrifying because they're very radical. They say things so openly that, like, us as kids, if we saw stuff like that, we would only see it like in horror films. And Palestinians too, young Palestinians too. I admit it. We're our side too. And what I'm thinking is that a lot of us that come here to these discussion groups, we're open and stuff, but I think we're headed for a tidal wave of extremist young people who are going to become older. Maybe their heart will soften, but most likely they will not. And we're seeing this trend. And I feel that a lot of these organizations, we're not reaching out. We're not doing enough to this because we're seeing that the younger generation is becoming more extreme. And it's really starting, you mentioned that Palestinian societies, younger people are more secular, but more secular does, hello, hi, there's a young generation. Hello, how
Yeah,
are
this
you?
is our young generation. Ima Mash Nechmada. She's very good. I think
Good.
we have a bright future with her here.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that we can the older people we can start educating the younger generation and teach them the values that we'd like to see in the future. And that's that's the best we could do. We want to leave them a world better than the one they were born into. And so that, people who are older have more free time. Younger people have a lot of kids and a lot of stuff on their hands. As you get older, you get more time to be an activist. I mean, that's the reality. So now that we have, now that we have time to do it, we should do it. And yeah, I'd like to see more young people, less radicalized. And I think if we create an environment like a federation or confederation where there's room for being a young person and being proud of your identity and also being able to connect to the other side, I think that's what'll help enable people. Because yeah, young Israelis are very proud to be Israeli. They'll say that they're Zionists, and when they say they're Zionists, they're not talking about 100 years ago. They mean I'm proud to be an Israeli now. I support my country and my people. I would fight for our existence here. That's what they mean. And a lot of young Palestinians are obviously proud of their heritage and their right to be here, and they're going to fight for that right. And we should tell them that that's okay. You don't have to give up. You don't have to surrender in order to win. You can win together.
Let me just say something. Can I say something?
Sure, Olivia, go ahead.
Well,
Go ahead.
when
Go
I
for it.
see a photograph of a government minister who celebrates hatred, who celebrates birthday cake, I don't know who gave who the birthday cake, the wife, the loving wife, or the loving husband, and there's a little kiss. And what's on the birthday cake? You may have seen the photograph, I'm sure you have. It's a noose to hang Palestinians. The same minister a few months ago celebrated with a bottle of champagne when the Knesset passed a law for the death penalty. Now, these in any normal country, though I don't really know what normal means anymore, but in any civilized country in the Western world, and the word civilized has also become quite relative from my point of view, that minister would be shamed, would be a disgrace, and would be asked to resign immediately, would be just kicked out of the government, okay, instead of applauded and seen on television and seen in the press in many different countries, you know. So we know why he wasn't, and we know that Netanyahu needs this ghastly, beastly, ghastly man full of hatred. We know why he needs him. Otherwise, his government would collapse. Okay, so the whole thing is sick. The whole thing. I agree 200% with what Sulaiman has said. One has to address the causes, the root causes of this conflict are suffering. One has to listen to the suffering of other people, vice versa. Both have to listen. But the root causes are what they are. They are called the Nakba. They are called a dispossessed people. They are called second-class citizens. They are called genocided people. And the genocide is ongoing as we speak, as we discuss all these wonderful things for the future. And I think Joseph's idea is absolutely wonderful. But it is a little bit more complicated. And right now, I do see a messianism becoming more popular. They say there's more media space given to messianism. I see what's happening in the Lebanon, which is pure messianism. And the world just looks at it. Okay? That's what I have to say. I wish everybody the best. And I do understand and agree totally with what Sulaiman says. I identify absolutely with him. And of course, I wish the best for Radi, our other guest. And thank you both for coming along. Of course I do.
Thank you. Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
Any reply? Rafi or Sulaiman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't vote for Ben-Gvir. I hope he gets kicked out of the government.
We'll get rid of him. We'll get rid of him. Make sure he goes. We know why he won't go. Because he says, okay, I'll withdraw my support from your government and your prime minister will go to prison. We know what it's all tied up with. We know where the money's coming from.
A lot of people vote for him, and that's why he's there. Yeah,
absolutely. That's what's disturbing for me, the fact that people vote for him. And
well,
the fact
I
that
mean,
people
how many people would in the Palestinian side would vote for the equivalent of Ben-Gvir on of Palestine?
Great point.
Well, I think if we talking about Hamas and Hezbollah, they are resistant movements. They have a right to exist. They have a right to exist. If someone is bombing your house with you are embracing your little daughter, and she's lovely. Someone's bombing your house. You have a right to resist. You have a right to stand up for yourself. We're talking about respect of international law, and respect of international law means that you cannot kill civilians. You have to read international law.
Hamas went and massacred civilians.
Hoots. No one gives two. They don't have the right. That is a crime. I totally agree. I absolutely agree. One has to read and know and become familiar with international law. That has been thrown out the window by every Tom, Dick, and Harry. One has to recreate something
but the thing is also is that I know we live in this world where we like to say, you know, I actually wrote about this about 2 weeks ago. I said that I called it the Netanyahu deflect.
Yeah.
And you know, even like, for example, Bernie Sanders in his speech to Congress or the Senate, he said, you know, he didn't call out Israel. He didn't call it out Israel. He said the Netanyahu and right-wing government. And it's like, okay, what's the alternative? Neftali Bennett? I mean, is that going to change anything? I mean,
Israel may be committing suicide, Nasir. The Zionist government may be committing suicide, but I'll leave that to greater specialists like
I know,
Shlomo.
But I don't want to focus too much on these ministers that are far right. Again, like I said, he might have.
There are lots of them. I understand what you're saying. Absolutely, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, they're basically, in my opinion, I mean, they're vehicles. They're vehicles for the government. They're vehicles for the government. The settler movements are vehicles.
They have the same agenda, Nasir. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
They have the same, without the birthday cake, perhaps, but otherwise very similar. I quite agree with you. And you're a far greater expert than I am, obviously. And at the receiving end of brutality and hatred and awfulness and threat to your people in Jerusalem. It's hideous, Nasir. It's hideous, loathsome.
I would like to add. I would like to say something about why I see the federal government, confederation government idea as a very likely possibility, and having Palestinians and Israelis participate in it. We are actually implementing that. There is a breakdown in Israeli society between the right and the left, between those that are disappointed in the Israeli political system, between the Orthodox and the secular, and there are people who are completely disillusioned with the Israeli political system in Israel. The same thing in Palestine. There is a disillusion in the Palestinian society between the pro-PLO, pro-Hamas, and I say that because I speak with a lot of Palestinians and Israelis almost on a daily basis, and there is a breakdown in society there in terms of trust, in terms of vision for the future. And I believe there are rational Israelis and rational Palestinians who understand that their governments are incapable of giving them a future, a safe future. And those rational those rational group of people, which in my opinion represent probably about 5 million people, are not nationalistic, they are realistic. And they are the one who will understand the failure of their system, the failure of their government, and that there has to be a system together in order for them to have a future. And I think those will be the core people. So what we showed in the simulation, in the assumption, I think that that's realistic. The question is, how many people will be aware of their potential ability to register to run and register to vote? And this is what we are counting on, is as much awareness as possible on both sides, so that we can move together into a rational future.
Yeah,
I think realistically, Palestinians would be way more open to this than Israelis. I feel that Palestinians
I
are at the
agree.
point
I
that
agree.
anything is better than the now. But however, I'm more concerned about the Israeli people. I don't think Israelis, they have no incentive, they have no reason to basically step down from power or give up power, domination.
But Israelis are not a monolithic society. They're not a monolithic society. When I go there, I meet people on a regular basis that are completely disillusioned with the Israeli government, with the Israeli system. They don't trust anybody. They're looking for a vision for the future.
But I think there aren't 1.5 million Israelis that will sign on the constitution. They are not exist yet.
Yeah, I don't think that. I agree with
maybe 10,000 people.
Okay.
I mean, they did polling in Israel, and something like they were at one point you could get maybe 30% of Israelis would support a confederation. This was many years ago. At this point, it's much lower.
Israelis
I can find you the study.
Okay.
And send it to you.
When you say the word confederation, there is no single understanding of what it means.
Sure. I mean,
Okay?
for the poll, it was defined as very specifically there would be 2 states, and they would have some kind of partnership where you would be able to go and travel to the other side, and there.
Yeah,
It
so
was specified in a limited fashion, but they would accept that as a principle.
okay. That's why we are counting on the election. We believe that if we have the election and we have a year to register, a person in Tel Aviv is going to look at it and at the beginning be very skeptical, and then he'll see that some people are starting to sign up, and they will have a conversation. The husband and wife will have a conversation. Will say, Oh, first we thought it's ridiculous, but what are we offering our children as a future? We already have been proven it's either we leave the country or we find something else. So I think that and also with the election coming up in Israel, which I think is going to blow up if there is an election at all, there is going to be more divisiveness in the Israeli society, and they will look for a future, a different future.
We have Ziad. I'm sorry, Ziad. Did you
Oh,
want to say something? Because he says he has to go, but he wanted to say something.
yeah, I have to go. We're actually celebrating my birthday today. I'm turning
Oh,
30. So
happy birthday. Happy
Oh,
birthday.
Mavrook,
but
Rafi.
I don't know.
I do have to go. Thank you guys. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I'm gonna have time to share everything, so maybe until next time I'll share my thoughts. I'm really sorry, guys, but it's been a great meeting and thanks for the invite.
All
I
right.
have to go
Thanks,
like
brother.
right now.
All right. Take care, brother. Take care. Happy birthday.
I guess very quickly,
Oh,
I think we talked about the roots. I think the roots of the problems are we have to tackle extremism in the Palestinian community and in the Israeli society. And I think the biggest are we need to eliminate extremism, so like supporting Hamas in Palestine. And also, I think the biggest problem with the Israeli side is collective punishment. I think collective punishment is a big one. But I'd love to next time you invite me to the meeting. I'll comprehend my thoughts and I'll be more. Yeah, I have to go. So
awesome. Okay. Thanks.
All
Thank you.
I would agree. I would
right.
agree. I would agree that extremism is a problem. And however, I think that the cure for, especially for Palestinian extremism, because in Palestine in 1990s, we saw, for right after Oslo, we saw a change in Palestine. I actually was very hopeful in the early 90s, like 94, 95. I was like, wow, things are really going good. And you even saw people's softening up because they saw differences, they saw changes. But the thing is that it's hard to fight extremism when you have, for example, when I look at the settlers, what they're doing right now, and not just one time, two times, but it's happening all over the place. Like the soccer field today of kids being attacked by settlers, Amro Isa's house being attacked by a settler, the people in the eastern parts near like Tormasaya, Derbwan, in these areas that daily attacks. It's like this is what radicalizes people. And no matter how open you are, no matter how many dialogues you have, no matter what you do, when you're facing with these on a constant daily, 4 or 5 times a day, this is what fuels the extremists.
Of course, of course. Yeshaya Leibovich already in the 80s,
Mm,
in a way, called them Judeo-Nazis, and he was right. And unfortunately, at the time, the Nazis of, the Kahana people, they
yeah,
were dispelled. They couldn't get to the Knesset, but now they are in control. So unfortunately, you're dealing with a Nazi
yeah.
type of regime. And what do you do with it? And also education. You
Yeah.
look at the children, what they are,
Yeah, I mean,
what they are
and if,
talking.
if the army did something to enforce some sort of law and order, that would be something. But they're lacking that, and not just that, but they're enabling it and
They're
participating in it. And
complicit. They're
yes,
enablers. They're
yeah,
complicit.
yeah.
Exactly.
Go ahead,
Exactly.
Jeff. Jeff,
Thank you. I
Jeff.
wanted to go back to something that Sully was saying earlier. So if we look at, as Sully, as you were saying, that these are symptoms and not the root causes. Yeah. So the antidote to extremism, recognition, as you're suggesting, I don't mean to overinterpret your words, but also the aspect of collective freedom. Yeah. So I think within Joseph, within the construct of the IPC, the hard work, as much as hard work as you're putting in to set this up, the ongoing hard work is in regard to what Sully is saying, if I might suggest, that somehow it get incorporated into this, that the recognition that deals with the independent and then collective traumas and also collective freedom, because otherwise it's a box that you never get out of. So that's all I have to share, and thank you very much for your attention. And I'll try.
Did Joseph, did you want to reply to that, or did anybody else?
Look, we are 77 years into 78, maybe 100 years really or more into this violent conflict. Okay? And all these things have been said, and thinking the same way that we need to resolve, and I'm not against resolving those issues. But I think the only entity that would be able to resolve
Joseph,
these
I'm not
issues.
suggesting that it displaced that. I'm saying it will enhance it. So all I'm saying is that in addition to, as part and parcel of the effort that goes on with the IPC, with the election, with the then working as the representatives, the delegates work with the populations, the 55,000 people in each district, so forth and so on, that the aspect that Sully has mentioned, I think, is maybe valuable to your effort. This is all I'm saying.
And okay, but specifically, what would you suggest we
Well,
do?
I suggest that in the construction of the educational aspect, the cultural aspect, not just the legislative, right? So you talk about rebuilding. So there's a $50 billion rebuild in Gaza you were suggesting, but the rebuild is not just about the structures, it's also about the interactions. It's a longer conversation, but I just wanted to recognize and highlight
Okay,
some.
yeah, but that's only in the constellation of the simulation. That's
I
not really,
appreciate that. So this is all I
yeah.
want to bring forward.
Look, let me respond to you. We will have 300 districts, okay? Some of the districts, or many of those districts, will be Palestinians and Israelis together, okay? So let's say Sulaiman lives in Jerusalem. I know he lives in Ramallah.
Yeah, but I am actually born in Jerusalem, but I can't enter Jerusalem just for.
Okay. So let's say you put yourself as a candidate for parliament or president, and for the whole area of Israel Palestine. And people will open their phone and they're going to say, "Oh, we have Suleiman running for president." That in itself is going to create a discussion, and it's going to create a decision that people will have to make. Do I want to participate in this? Do I want to ridicule this? Who is Suleiman? What is he going to offer? He may get emails. He may get calls. He may get, Suleiman, you are offering yourself to be the president of Israel Palestine. What are you offering us? What are your qualifications? And then he gets interviewed
A
and
snowball effect. I think you mean a snowball effect, Joseph. Sorry for jumping in. Exactly. That's a clever idea. Yes, of course.
And it's going
it
to
generates
repeat itself.
Sure,
It's going to
sure.
repeat itself every time someone participates.
Yes.
There's going to be an engagement with people within the same district. So Rafi ran for president when we had the election in 2012. Okay. This could have its own life. And if we're just thinking of, well, first we need this and first we need that, you have to look at reality. We haven't reached all of these hurdles. I mean, we are 100 years into this violence. Do we still want to insist on the old system that got us deeper and deeper and deeper into this hole?
Sure. What I think will happen is that ultimately there's going to be pressure from particularly America and the international community on Israel to make a choice about what's going on with Palestine, and there'll start being more significant pressure, and ultimately that'll force them to start doing some resolution to this conflict. And I don't know at the current moment because of all these wars going on, there's a lot of distraction. and also the government in the United States is very right wing, but that won't last forever. And ultimately, there's going to be significant pressure on Israel demanding some kind of resolution. And then I think things like this will have more chance of picking up speed and actually coming to fruition. But I think what we should do now is start them.
But at the
There's no
same
time like the present to get
but
started.
at the same time, this is what's accelerating. What you're seeing right now in the West Bank with the settler violence increasing is because of this. They feel that this is their window. I mean, when there was an interview between David Friedman and what's the name of the settler movement guy in Hebron? Yishai,
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 sure.
yeah, like that.
Oh, sure.
And David Friedman, who was the Trump's ambassador in his first term to Israel, he told them, we have a window of 5 years. We need to do what we need to do in 5 years because the United States is going to change. And this is why we're seeing the West Bank turn into basically a field of attacking. They're using children. They're taking children from homes where they were abandoned or foster homes, and they're even giving them drugs and unleashing them on the Palestinian people. This is not a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
This is stuff that's happening right
I'm
now.
not with this.
The Hilltop youth right now, there was a young man from Atidna that came here that spoke here. He's even writing about this, about how they're taking children from foster homes, broken homes, and using them and telling them this vision of a from the river to the sea, yeah, the God's given land and stuff. And these are if you look at some of the photos of these people that are attacking the Palestinians, these settlers, they're young people, they're thugs basically, and they're purposely being used by these people because of this. So the stronger you see organization, you're seeing Israel also unleashing its responding to it in a much more aggressive way.
I don't know if they wouldn't say the settler youth are sanctioned as part of the government, but I think our current government is turning the
Rafi, they
blind
are
eye with
protected. They are
All right,
protected. They
let's
have people in
guys,
the
let's
army.
conclude.
fair
We
enough.
are an
I
hour
mean,
and
come on, you
19
can't say that
minutes.
they're not enabled. They're enabled. They're complicit. They're carrying out policy. This is to separate them from the Israeli government. It's if the Israeli government
Fair
wanted to,
enough.
they can go arrest them. They can remove them, not even shoot them.
Yeah.
But if Palestinians were running
I
around
agree.
doing 10% of what
They
they were
are
doing, they'd be shot and
government
killed.
attack dogs. I would call them attack dogs
Yeah.
working on the part of the government, the Messianic movement. These settler, these violent people that Nasser is describing, attack dogs.
All right.
Can I say something to Rafi?
Yeah, Sean.
Okay. Just the one thing I want to mention. You mentioned about the early Zionism, but and you want the saying that they have equal rights. But I frankly, I heard from Norman Finkelstein that Zionism is for Jewish is the top priority. There's no such thing as equal rights in Israel, because if they give equal rights to all the cities that are non-Jewish, then there's no point of the Jewish state. But this is what this is what Norman Finkelstein said, and frankly I agree with him because sorry,
I can hardly hear you.
me.
Who is the question for?
For you, Rafi, he said that.
Oh yeah, so I don't agree with Norman Finkelstein. I don't agree that Zionism needs to be that way. I don't think that. I don't believe that as in my own view, and I don't think that everyone thinks that way.
He says that if they give equal rights to the non-Jews, then there's no such thing as a Jewish state. You might as not call it Israel. You might as well call it Palestine.
I mean, there's
that's what he
ostensibly
said.
equal rights for Arab citizens of Israel, but in Palestine in the framework of international law, for example, Palestine is a different state, so it's not really up to Israel to annex the West Bank and give them citizenship of Israel without their agreeing to it.
So you're saying Palestinian citizens are equal in the state of Israel?
I'm saying Palestinian citizens of Israel, I mean, are relatively equal. Obviously, there's room to improve, but they have citizenship. They can get jobs. They can go to university. They can serve in the military. They can serve in the government. Obviously, there's room to improve, and we can
take a look at the face of the prosecutor in Beersheba who was beaten by the police and tell me this is equality. I don't.
Guys, this is not a Israel versus Palestine.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is when someone comes to me and says that'd be like me saying that black people under Jim Crow laws were equal citizens.
Look, we know there is a huge Israel-Palestine problem.
Yeah, and this is the reason why when someone who calls himself a Zionist, liberal Zionist, and will say they're hypocrites, because they sit here and they say about, oh, it's just about Jews wanting to come.
But
this is about Jewish supremacy. This is about Jewish supremacy and establishing that Jews have rights on land that basically supersede anybody else. And this is what it comes down to with every Zionist. Every Zionist.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's conclude the meeting. Thank you all. Thank you, Rafi, for your.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for having us. And
for your
nice to meet you, Sulaiman.
And thank you, Sulaiman, both of you. I appreciate that. And we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
And thank you to our guests.
I'd like to say
You're wonderful, Joseph.
So, Sulaiman,
Take care, Joseph.
We